Our first section of the Integral Agility Model is Leadership Agility. In this section, we will deconstruct the Ionic quadrant in terms of leadership mindset and skills. When we refer to leadership agility, we talk about growing and evolving our complexity of mind, our mindset, so we can deal with the complexity of any reality, as well as the skills and competencies needed to be an effective leader. Our leadership growth has two dimensions: vertical or inner dimension and horizontal or outer dimension. The inner dimension or inner game refers to our internal operating system. That is how we think, how we see the world. This is our meaning-making machine, and we can grow the capacity to address problems we face. Colloquially, people refer to this line as being agile. The outer dimension or outer game refers to the level of our competencies and skills. It is what we think and what we do. This is about learning new skills, and we can grow this competency by practicing. Colloquially, people refer to this line as doing agile. By mastering one's inner game or mindset, reducing self-imposed limitations, and focusing on the process, individuals can unlock their full potential and achieve higher levels of success and satisfaction in their endeavors. The inner game refers to be able to take perspective or multiple perspective. What do I think about this issue? What do you think about it? What do they think about it? So it is the ability to step outside our self-view and into others. That does not mean we need to or have to agree with others, but simply understand where they are coming from and what beliefs may push them to think that way. The inner game is also about being aware of ourselves, other, and the environment. It is being aware of our thoughts, actions, and the implications those may have. The inner game is also about having integrity and authenticity. Do we walk our talk? Or do we say one thing and then do the opposite? And it is also being able to see things without judgment, or at least being aware, or our judgment and bias, that makes us see things one way or the other. The outer game refers to the skills such as facilitation, mentoring, listening, product development practices, etc. The other game is a reflection of our inner game. That is, our actions and behaviors will be shaped by our mindset. For example, if the narrative of our inner game is that we value teams' efficiency, then the outer game may be for us to measure teams' velocity and tasks. But if our inner game is telling us to value teams' effectiveness, we may measure customer satisfaction, KPIs, instead. So the mantra here is that our inner game runs the outer game. If we believe that failure is not acceptable, our actions will be to avoid experimentation and penalize any failure. Both inner and outer game go hand to hand. We need to develop both to be effective leaders. Pay attention to this picture. What do you see? Do you see an older lady facing sideways, or a younger lady facing towards the right? Or both? Or none? As Robert Kegan, an American psychologist and author, or many human development-related books, says, "We do not find a world, we make it." When somebody says something to you, you have a thought, an opinion, and that thought is created. It has a theory in it, a belief about how the world works, how other people work, etc. But it is in the background running our actions, and sometimes we do not even know or are conscious about it. It is a kind of meaning-making operating system. Those thoughts and beliefs are kind of mental schemas. It is the kernel of our thinking. So we are subject to our perception. So the mantra here is, the inner game runs the outer game. What we do not see, it is not there, or what we do not understand does not exist. That is why we start with awareness. The way in which we perceive and comprehend the world influences the reality that manifests before us. Just like in the picture you are seeing. By developing an awareness of our individual sense-making processes, our own filters, we can reveal our unique viewpoints and offer insights into how we make sense of the world. The complexity of the context we face as leaders makes a demand on our complexity of mind, our inner sense-making, our internal operating system. It requires that the complexity of mind of our leadership be more than a match for the complexity we face in the VUCA world around us. The complexity of the organizational situations we face every day is beyond our inner capacity to make sense. So we find a gap between our complexity of mind and the complexity of the context we face as leaders. If we do not close that gap, we are putting ourselves in the way of the very things we are trying to accomplish, and we become our worst impediment. For most of us, our level of self-awareness, our mental models, our inner beliefs and assumptions, our way of making sense, lacks the capacity and maturity to deal and thrive in a VUCA world. The belief that we live in a simple linear world where things can be predicted and planned, where problems can be categorized and fixed with simple best practice, is long gone. What happens under a predict and plan paradigm is that we keep implementing plans and control mechanism to control the environment, which makes the environment more complex. It is like a self-fulfilling prophecy that keeps regenerating in a vicious cycle. As we see and experience more complexity in our workplace, we apply more detailed plans. We apply exceptions and mechanisms of control, which makes the environment even more complex. You may say that falling into the predict and plan paradigm is a mechanism of self-defense in the midst of complexity, where we feel the end of control by predicting and planning. We cannot operate at a level of complexity that is required to lead our organization unless we ourselves, our own inner world, operates at that same level or higher of complexity. There are mainly two different paradigms that exist in today's world, and we will use these paradigms throughout this program. One paradigm is the predict and plan, and the other one, the sense and respond. And as I talk about these two paradigms, I want you to think about your own experience in your organization, because most of us approach complexity from the predict and plan paradigm as a default. In the predict and plan paradigm, we assume we can predict the future and make a plan. If the plan does not work good enough, we just need to improve planning. So we keep adding more processes and steps, so we unconsciously make everything way too complex. This paradigm invites us to think about the organizations as complicated machines, that although complicated, it is predictable, where employees are cogs in that machine. We use language as a well-oiled machine to describe a team or organization that is efficient. We use terms as velocity, bottlenecks, blockers, productivity, engineering, etc. All machine language. This paradigm may work in a complicated environment where things can still be predicted, and there is little complexity and volatility. So we can predict the world and make plans. Success is defined as we are following the plan, and things are according to plan, even though reality may have changed. We like being in control, so we are showing up with certainty using plans, percentages of completion, status reports, etc. There is a linear relationship between cause and effect. Something is not working, so we look for one solution that will fix the problem, like we see the organization as a machine to be fixed. Problems are solvable, but require expertise and analysis. If we spend enough time analyzing, we will come up with better processes and rules to fix the problem. So with good analysis, we can know what to expect and what we should do. Therefore, we plan up front and follow the plan. Decisions are top-down. Create processes to reduce uncertainty. Rely on analysis and objective metrics. In a traditional predict and plan paradigm, the role of the manager is to drive to results by setting the objectives, directing resources, and continuously measuring progress. The external motivation is linked to how well those objectives are achieved. It assumes that reality has to bend and fit a preset plan. The mantra here is, plan the work, work the plan. On the other hand, in a sense and respond paradigm, we recognize we cannot predict the future, that things are in constant change, sometime unexpected, and that cause and effect is hard to see or may have several interpretations. Therefore, we plan as we go, we make decisions based on what we know and adjust as we learn more. We emphasize quick feedback, and we create structures and processes that are emergent and adaptable. In a sense and respond paradigm, the role of management is on setting the adequate organizational and cultural conditions so that individuals and the organization as a whole grows into a conscious leadership stage where sense and respond becomes the new paradigm everywhere in the organization. This is what is known as a responsibility-based organization. It is really hard to think that the world is not predictable and to live and deal with uncertainty and the unknown. So when we talk about agile transformation, it is about moving the system, that is, ourselves, teams, and the entire organization to a point such that the way we hold the relationship between A and B is completely different. We are in constant relationship with everything. For example, in predict and plan paradigm, the relationship between A and BI. In this case, it could be the relationship between ourselves and uncertainty, may generate a sense of wanting to control and a response of planning in more detailed. Transforming that relationship we have with uncertainty using a sense and respond may generate a sense of discovery and opportunity. So we respond by looking at patterns, introducing small changes as hypothesis, and responding based on what we obtain from those changes. If our hypotheses work, we amplify them. If they do not work, we pivot to another hypothesis. In order to grow our own limitations and upgrade our internal OSA, there are two things that need to be possible. The first one is what is known as seeing the seer or self-awareness. Seeing the seer is witnessing ourselves. We become the object, not the subject. We ask ourselves questions such as, what am I thinking? What am I doing? What is the impact of my leadership to others? What is my body, mind, and intuition telling me? What belief am I holding that has me see the situation this way? So, it is like you are both the camera person filming yourself as well as the main character. Why is this essential? Because if we are not able to see ourselves, that is, having that self-awareness, then we cannot identify our own leadership limitations and possibilities. Therefore, we will not be able to grow our own leadership. And the second thing that needs to be possible is to be able to take perspective of others. In other words, stepping into someone else's shoes, having empathy and letting go the desire to be always right. So we ask ourselves questions such as, what is that like for the other person? What would others do in this situation? What is a different way to see this situation? By taking perspective, we can leverage the integral agility model. We can take the I perspective, what am I thinking? We can take a we perspective around culture and its perspective around system thinking. We can increase the complexity of mind and solve more complex problems. A research done by the Leadership Circle involved 50,000 leaders and employees worldwide, and they were asked to describe the ideal leadership. They asked, what kind of leadership, if it existed, would enable the organization to thrive in its current marketplace and into the future? These are the results summarized from most desirable to less desirable. Strong people skills, good listener, team builder, leads by example, etc. Notice that they are all a product of personal and professional leadership development, as well as self-awareness expressed through high-integrity leadership. Pay attention that technical capacities, business acumen or management capacities, such as provides clear instructions to employees, predicts the future, meets plans as expected, strong charisma, individualistic, manages resources, and others did not make it to the top 10, not even the top 20. The predict and plan paradigm does not serve us anymore. The world is changing, and so does how we think about leadership. Then, what are the behaviors that leaders should embrace to set the right example and build a generative culture? Authenticity. Leaders should model professional and ethical behaviors, demonstrating honesty, integrity, and transparency while staying true to their beliefs. Emotional intelligence. Effective leaders identify and manage emotions, both their own and those of others, by practicing self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Lifelong learning. Leaders engage in continuous self-motivated learning and growth, and they actively support and encourage the same in their teams. Growing others. Leaders provide personal, professional, and technical guidance and resources to help employees take on greater responsibilities and decision-making roles. Decentralized decision-making. Leaders empower teams to make decisions where the relevant information resides, invest in their technical competence, and establish organizational clarity with decision-making boundaries. Let's look at different stages of leadership development. Although the stages of development use the color code from the integral model, I am using a terminology for each leadership stage. This terminology is used by most sociologists and leadership experts. You may find other ways to identify these stages of development or action logics, but in essence, they are very similar. Again, this leadership development model is not a typology model like Myers-Briggs Type Indicator or MBTI. Rather, it is an evolutionary model, reflecting how people make sense of the world around them. This model offers the opportunity for personal growth to all. No one is fixed at their current action logic. If motivated and supported to do so, everyone is able to develop new ways of looking at and engaging with life/work. About 90% of all managers operate from the expert and achiever levels. That is, they assume sole responsibility for setting their organization's objectives, coordinating the activities of their subordinates, and managing their performance. This is a map to understand the terrain of leadership and to grow to higher levels of consciousness in leadership. These are not types of leaders, but rather shows a map of leadership. And by leadership, we do not mean management. This can be applied to everyone, and I mean everyone, from the CEO all the way down the hierarchy. These paradigms are not a clean cut either. Someone may be centered in one, like achiever for example, but be moving to an upper one, catalyst. So these are evolutionary and inclusive. And it is up to us, as leaders, to realize where we are in our journey, understand ourselves as leaders, and consciously decide where we want to go next. Even though there are more than 6 stages of development, we will focus on only 4, because these are the most common ones in organization and in the world for that matter. We have the diplomat or socialized mind, the expert, achiever, and catalyst. Opportunistic are very rare and would not survive in today's organizations or corporations. A leader at an opportunistic stage or action logic manages by bullying and ridicule. On the other side of the spectrum, co-creators, which are also very rare, although they are slowly increasing in our society, can deal with many different contexts, many different levels, and reinvent themselves and their orgs. We may see some CEO who have done this, but just a few. Something to remember here is that this is like a map to help us understand our thinking, our doing, our leadership. We all have some or a lot of each of these developmental stages or action logic, and to a certain degree, they are all needed. And this is an evolutionary and inclusive model, meaning that we evolve into higher stages of development by transcending our current stage so we can always access the previous ones. We are not saying that some stages are better than others. What we are saying is that higher stages or altitudes or action logs deal better with complexity, such as an agile transformations. Let's start with the diplomat or socialized mind that we saw in our previous section. Diplomat constructs their sense of self from others, peoples, ideas, institutions, bosses. It identifies with other people, or rather, with an idealized person. It looks for important figures. It is hard to think outside the box. And there is a lack of inner compass. It is like they are borrowing their compass from someone else. The diplomat is a team player and tends to fall into group thinking. The diplomat tends to seek for approval and acceptance, so in a discussion, it may be easier for them to accept they are wrong than being thrown out of the group. They tend to accept and support hierarchical structures. We all have a bit or a lot of diplomat. Our current society would not function the way it does without some diplomat mindset. We have countries, cities, cultures which we belong to, we conform with, and want to be accepted by that society. The next level or stage of leadership development is the expert. The expert does not longer identify with someone else's ideas, but they identify with their expertise. They are their expertise. Most software developers and managers function from this expert stage. You are what you know. The expert leadership tends to be very analytical, knows the business or technology, tends to be very reactive and solve problems in a reactionary manner, like firefighting, thinks about optimizing his team only, or department, but nothing beyond that, tends to give orders and tell people what to do because he knows better. Most of the interactions, especially with subordinates, are one-on-one. He likes to keep things under control using reports and tools. As leader, tends to cut people off in conversations he thinks has better knowledge and expertise, and also tends to avoid conflict. His mantra may be something like, "Why others cannot be just like me." This leader is very proud of his/her knowledge and expertise, sees others and compares others based on knowledge, not future potential. The world tends to be divided into two, those who win and those who lose. As for their limitations, they are not able to see beyond their expert action logic. So they have a hard time thinking beyond their own perspective. My way is the right way, right or wrong. So there is a lack of cognitive permeability. The next stage is the achiever. The achiever is more of an observer, listener, outcome-oriented, accepts feedback with a predict and plan paradigm, and challenges others to grow. The achiever is less about controlling and more about being an agent of change to achieve objectives. Now, instead of trying to optimize his team or department, the achiever starts to see the whole org as connected and therefore starts to think about how to optimize the whole. He or she is driven by outcomes and objectives with the customer in mind, not just checking off a to-do list. As leader, he informs others of his objectives, decisions, and progress, mainly in a one-way communication, but open to feedback. We start seeing that this leader becomes more of an observer, listens to others, and walks around the floor to understand people, processes, problems, etc. He or she is more attached to reality, connects to people at a deeper level, and therefore can inspire and challenge others. This person can be both strategic and tactical. Interactions with others go beyond one-on-one. He or she can have interactions at many levels and with a multitude of people. This person faces tough issues by bringing the right people together, accepts, provides, and requests feedback, all around with the aim of being more effective and efficient. The mantra would be something like, "We can do better, we can be one." This action logic has the ability to command a bigger context, but unable to see beyond that. Most executive leaders get to achievers, and organizations reward and promote successful people with this action logic or developmental altitude. In the expert and achiever action logic or stages, the paradigm tends to be predict and plan. We near and see things such as, we need all the requirements before we start coding. Management needs to set objectives and priorities. Then the teams come up with plans to achieve those objectives. Agile is seen as the means to achieve efficiency and effectiveness. The more we do, the better. We want more, faster, cheaper. These action logics tend to think that if we train the teams in Agile, they will be able to deliver more, faster, better. Agile is seen as a silver bullet process that can be simply implemented. Agile is only for the teams, not for management or leaders. The last stage we are learning about is the catalyst. Catalyst is self-transforming, meaning he is able to observe self and be aware of the impact of his leadership styles. The catalyst is a change agent, a people grower who can take a holistic approach, is a true servant leader, value-centric more than process-centric, can have many interactions, and most importantly, can hold multiple perspectives. Just a reminder here that we are not talking about hierarchical titles in an organization. Leadership is everywhere, and anyone can get to catalyst altitude. As a catalyst, we are looking at someone who focuses on growing people and the organization as a whole. So training is not enough. We need real coaching, leadership modeling, and mentoring. Catalyst brings people together to participate and share responsibility. This person is very value and purpose-driven. The organization has a purpose, and we as a whole are called to fulfill it. This person starts to become more integral and thinks about operations, processes, people, and culture, and the growth in all those areas. This action logic can see Agile as a full and continuous organizational transformation. The catalyst can also be a visionary and at the same time very humble. Interactions go beyond the organization, with the community, and with other organizations. Seeks feedback and advice from anyone. The mantra would be something like this: we can be better, be more inclusive, do the right thing, and become a learning organization. As a catalyst, I believe I can deliberately create, or rather co-create the world around me. Being able to hold different perspectives, not only one being able to see the bigger picture, zoom in and out, being able to be guided by a purpose, bigger purpose than oneself, the team, the department, even the organization, being able to recognize their limiting beliefs or leadership liabilities. How that may be true, being able to stand in the midst of the unknown and uncertainty for longer than previous action logics, reflect on one's own sense-making, or seeing the seer. For a catalyst, Agile is not just a process or a way to achieve a company's objectives. Agile values become a full reality. Agile can even be seen as a limiting factor, so catalysts may even transcend Agile into something else more suitable for their collective purposes. Here is an exercise for you. The intention of this exercise is not just in the scoring, but in paying attention to your own action logic you use to score these altitudes. From 1 to 10, score each skills or capability for each altitude, 10 being highest and 1 being lowest. What makes it a 1, or a 2, or a 10, etc. What do you think you may see or hear from these altitudes or action logics that give you that clue? For example, for visionary, you may say that a diplomat has a low score of 2 because it tends to have a socialized mind and may not be capable of envisioning something that requires authoring and criticism that may risk the sense of belonging. And you may say that visionary for a catalyst may be a high 9 because that mind can integrate different perspectives to create a new possibility from the present. This is an activity to reflect on your own leadership style and sense-making. Take some time to reflect by placing yourself at different stages of leadership. What would it be like to operate from a diplomat mind or an expert mind, etc.? What may be true from each stage? What could be possible? For example, operating from an expert mind as an agile coach. I believe I hold the truth of what it means to be agile and what it means to do agile. Therefore, I have the expert authority to tell others how to do agile. My coaching style is then to tell people what they do wrong and what they should do instead. People see me and tell me, you are the coach. Tell me if this is right or not. Tell me if this is agile or not. And if not, please correct me. As an achiever agile coach, I believe what matters is team's efficiency. Therefore, I am responsible of recording and reporting team's velocity and other efficiency metrics to measure success. Success is based on increasing team's efficiency. The whole idea here is for you to be aware of what coaching style you may be accessing or operating from and the impact that may have on the system. We as coaches may have to access different altitudes or parts of it, depending on the circumstances. Sometimes we may need to borrow the expert stance, other times the catalyst. But we need to grow all of them eventually. Remember that, as we grow stages, we include and transcend the previous one. So an expert action logic cannot access a catalyst, but a catalyst can access an expert action logic if needed. As part of this course, to develop your leadership, you can take a free Leadership Circle profile assessment and reflect on it. leadershipcircle.com/free-self-assessment. Visit the link on the screen and take the Leadership Self-Assessment. Once you send your assessment, you will get your results by email and the instructions to interpret the results. Now that you have taken the Leadership Circle profile and read the LCP guide, what capabilities and skills do you want to improve or amplify? What reactive tendencies do you want to balance out or reduce? You can validate these reactive tendencies by requesting feedback from your colleagues, your boss, your peers, your employees, or clients. For this activity, please refer to the companion document titled One Big Thing. One aspect of developing self is intentionally change some behaviors and reflect on them. The one big thing is your leadership goal. It is one thing, one change that will improve your leadership effectiveness. Grab a piece of paper or computer and answer these 7 questions. 1. What is that one big thing that will improve your leadership effectiveness? Example, I want to bring a calm presence into difficult situations or conversations. 2. Why is this one big thing important to you? Example, I want to bring leadership with my presence instead of getting all anxious and shacking up everyone. 3. And what impact do you expect to have on your leadership and your org or team? Example, I want my presence to be contagious so we can slow down, focus on solving problems, and listen to all voices. 4. What assumptions or internal thinking need to be let go? Example, I have to let go that I am always right. I have to let go that there are fires everywhere and I need to put them down. 5. And when we move into action, what concrete actions, behaviors, or practices do you want to do more or start? Examples of some concrete actions could be, I want to bring awareness to me and others of what is going on so we can act on it by breathing and counting to 3. Asking myself what can be useful in this situation. What do I notice in me and others? What needs to be revealed in the moment? Suggest others to take a pause. 6. And which ones do you want to do less or stop? An example of something to do less or stop could be to stop interrupting people in the middle of their sentence unless I truly believe interrupting may serve the team or the conversation. 7. How would you know you are improving? As an example, I will request feedback, and I will sense the energy field in meetings. Please complete all the activities before moving to the next section.